Good afternoon, students. In this class, I'm going to discuss about polymorphism, one of the most important features in object-oriented programming. So, polymorphism, as well as here, I discussed function overloading and function overriding concept also. So, previously, I have discussed about different features of object-oriented program. Class and object and constructors and destructors I have already covered in previous classes. Similarly, friend functions and friend class also covered. Now in this class I come with new topic, polymorphism, which is one of the most important concepts in object-oriented programming. So I start first. What do you mean by polymorphism in object-oriented programming with C++? Polymorphism is a feature of object-oriented programming which allows the object to behave differently in different conditions. In C++, there are two types of polymorphism. Two types of polymorphism we have in C++. So number one is compile time polymorphism. It is also known as static, and second is runtime polymorphism. It is also known as dynamic binding, static binding and dynamic binding. So first, come to what do we mean by compile time polymorphism? Here in this concept, here object is bound to the function call at the compile time. So when we compile the program, then object is bound to the function calls at the compile time itself. For example, a good example of compile time polymorphism is function overloading and operator overloading. So in this class, I am discuss only function overloading, and in the next class I discussed operator overloading. Now runtime polymorphism. Here object is bound to the function call at runtime only at runtime. So function overriding is an example of function. Function overriding is an example of runtime polymorphism. So first, we clear polymorphism. So compile time polymorphism, runtime polymorphism. So compile time polymorphism, function overloading, operator overloading, and it is function overriding. So in runtime polymorphism we have function overriding. So now come to the concept, what is function overloading and function overriding? So function overloading is a C++ programming features which allows us to have more than one functions having same name but different parameter list. When I say parameters, it means data type and sequence of parameters, number of parameters. So function overloading is a feature that allows us to have same function more than once in a program. An overloaded function have same name but their signatures, means number of parameters and its data type may be different, a number of different for its functions. For example, parameter list of a function is integer a and float b. So here two parameters passed, and in this similarly here float and integer b parameter different. Here one is integer and float, here float and integers. So now if we here we see sum is a functions, here two parameters, integer number 1, integer number 2. Again some the functions with three parameters, number 1, number 2, number 3, and it is here some again it is differ in case of it is integer number and double number 2. So in this way we have function, different function with same name with function but different number of parameters and different data types. So the easiest way to remember this rule is that parameters should be qualified at any one or more of the following conditions. They should have different types, numbers, or sequence of parameters. So now we take some examples. So these two functions have different parameter types of sum integer, integer number 2, sum double number 1, double number 2. So here data type is different but number of parameter is same. So this is also two functions and it is example of function overloading. Now function overloading example, if we take, suppose this is processing data IOSTream and using namespace std. This is same as in C++ program. So syntax. Now class, we take a class additions. So in public visibility mode we have functions. So integer sum, integer number 1, integer number 2, and return number 1 plus number 2. This is adding two numbers of integer data type, and similarly another functions, integer sum, here three parameters is passed of same data type integers and return the addition of 3's. So finally these two functions with same name but different number of parameters. So one add two numbers, another add three numbers. So if we call in a main, we create object obj addition type object. So call this object dot sum this and object dot sum 3 this, and finally the output we have result is 35 and 191. So function overloading example is this. We may also another example. Suppose same integer string using namespace std, overloaded functions. So float sum integer, integer float sum, float sum, integer float sum, float integer. So four functions with different data types. Each data, here two integers passed, here two float type passed, here one integer, one first integer, second float, and second is float as integer. So here in this way you can overload the functions. So when we define this, here the float, so integer b, return a plus b. So this we define. Similarly we can define here return a b, both different data types, same data types in here, different data types. So returns also. In this way you can give some simple example. So this is nothing but the simple example of function overloading. So we, after executing, we get this. Now what is the advantage of function overloading? The main advantage of function overloading is to improve the code readability and allows code reusability. So improve code readability and code usability. For example, if we have seen how we are able to have more than one functions for same task additions with different parameters. This allows us to add two integer number as well as three integer number. If we wanted, we could have more functions with the same name, 4 or 5 arguments or number of parameters. So imagine if we did not have function overloading, then we either had limitations to add only two integers, we had write different name functions for the same task addition, and this it would reduce the code readability and reusability. Now come to the another important topic, function overriding in C++. So function overriding is a feature which allows us to have a same function in the child class which is already present in the parent class. So A child class inherits the data members and member functions of a parent class, but when we want to override a functionality in the child class, then we can use function overriding. It is like creating a new version of an old function in the child class. So function overriding is a feature of object-oriented programs that allows us to override the functions of parent class and child class. So example, if we take example function overriding, to override a function we must have same signature in the child class, but by signature we mean the data type and sequence of parameters. Here we don't have any parameter in the parent function, so we did not use any parameter in the child functions. So for example, suppose we take a class base class. So base class public void display functions, just we display this line function of parent class, then close, the class. Again we derive class from public visibility from the base class. So here we define the void display the function with same name. Okay, this is display. Here also we don't pass any parameter functions of the child. So here cout, so class close. So in integer main we define derive class object. So object derive class, so object display return 0, then output will come as function of the child class. Here we get the contents of child class, but this is override from the parents class. Yes, functions of the parent class. So we have result the function of the child class. In this function, in function of the functions in the parent class is called an overridden function, and function in child class is called overridden functions, overriding functions. So how to call? We have seen the above that when we make the call to function in overriding the child class functions, overridden functions gets called. And what if we want to call the overridden function by using object of the child class? So in this way we have, this is the same example. Now what is the difference between function overloading and function overriding? This is very important. So some basic difference we have in the function overloading and function overriding in C++ program. Number one, function overloading happens in the same class when we declare the same function with different arguments in the same class, but function overriding is happen in the child class when child class overrides parent class functions. So number two, in the function overloading, function signature should be different for all the overloaded functions, but in the function overriding, the signature of both functions overriding and overridden functions should be same. So this is difference. Now function overloading happens at the compile time. That is why it is known as compile time polymorphism, while overriding happens at the runtime, that is why function overriding also known as runtime polymorphism. So in function overloading we can have any number of overloaded functions, but in function overriding we can have only one overriding functions in the child class. So with this I conclude my class. I think you understand this concept. Okay, thank you.